These images were not created using Midjourney. They were not generated with Flux. They were created using Krea 2, one of the most interesting open-weight models released recently. And what caught my attention wasn't just the image quality, it was a technical report. Instead of simply building another image generator, the Krea team asked a completely different question. What if AI shouldn't generate one perfect image, but instead help artists explore creativity? I spent time reading through the entire technical report, and in this video, I'm going to explain the ideas that actually matter. And since many of us use ComfyUI every day, we will also build a complete creative workflow from scratch so you can start generating images immediately. Let's jump in. Before getting into ComfyUI workflow, let's understand what Krea actually released. Krea 2 is an open-weight image generation model designed around the creativity rather than simply maximizing the bench scores. That might sound like marketing, but once you read the report, you realize this philosophy influenced almost every design decision they made. Instead of asking, how can we generate the most realistic image, they asked, how do we help creators explore more ideas? That shift changes everything from the dataset to training, to prompting, and even how styles are handled. Now let's see why. If you have been using AI image generators for a while, you have probably noticed something. Different prompts, different seeds, yet many outputs still feel strangely familiar. Everything becomes cinematic. Everything becomes ultra detailed. Everything starts developing that's recognizable AI aesthetic. The creative believes this happens because most models are optimized towards one goal: generate the safest, highest scoring, most realistic image possible. But creativity doesn't work like that. Artists don't want one answer, they want possibilities. That's why Krea focus heavily on diversity and exploration. And personally, I think that's one of the most interesting ideas in this report. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention: the training data. Whenever new models are released, everyone asks how many parameters, how large the model is, what architecture. But Krea spent an incredible amount of effort improving something much less glamorous: their dataset. Instead of collecting billions of random internet images, they spent significant effort filtering them, removing the duplicates, removing poor quality captions, removing AI-generated images. Because if future models are trained on previous AI generations, eventually everything starts looking the same. That's a fascinating problem. The report also explains how they improve captions. Instead of relying only on file names, they combine OCR, metadata, image captioning, and language models to create much richer descriptions. That means during the training, the model learns much stronger relationships between the images and text, and that directly improves prompt understanding. This was probably my favorite section in the report. Let's say you type cyberpunk city. That's all, just 2 words. But during the training, the model usually sees captions that are much longer, sometimes hundreds of words describing the lighting, camera angle, architecture, materials, atmosphere, and much more. So there is a mismatch. Users write very short prompts, training captions are extremely detailed. Krea solves this using the prompt expansion. Instead of changing your idea, it expands your prompt into something much richer before image generation. Think of it as having an assistant that understands what you are trying to say and fills in the missing details. This helps the model to generate better images without requiring every user to become a prompt engineering expert. Enough theory. Let's actually build something. I was already in the ComfyUI. So let's select our nodes. So I was using this GZUI format as mine was Mac. So I was selecting the unit loader advanced, and here I'm going to choose the Krea 2. And along with this, we also need the load clip and the load VAE. So here for the load clip, I am going to choose this Quen 3. And even for this load VAE, I'm choosing the Quen, as this was a recommended model from their end. And now we can select the clip text encode for both positive and the negative prompts. And finally, we can choose our K-sampler. And let's also choose our empty latent. So empty ST3 latent. And I would recommend to make use of this resolution selectors. So here you can able to select the aspects, like what are the aspects that you want. And we also need to choose the decoder for VAE. And finally, for saving the image, I'm choosing this save image. So let's connect all this. So for model, we can connect from this, and for clips we need to give the connection for both positive and negative. So let me update this. So this is for positive prompt, and this would be for negative prompt. And let's connect the VAE with the VAE decoder, and the positive prompt should be connected to positive and the negative should be connected to negative, and this latent should be connected to latent. And the width and height, we are not choosing it here, so we are just connecting this to the resolution selector, so we can choose whatever the resolution that we want. And finally, the output should be connected here. So this would be the very cool and simple workflow which can works very well. I even tried generating multiple images with the same workflow. And the prompt, I have already have the prompts ready. So this was the prompt. And for the negative prompt, I recommend not to use the heavy negative prompt. So just make use of these 3 words and it would be more than enough, which was watermark, logo, and the text. So this was my final workflow. Now let's optimize it. So one thing I always recommend is experimenting with a few code settings in the K sampler. So for the sampling steps, I suggest like just we can use between the 20 to 30, it will already produce a very good results. But we can always start with 4 and we can see the difference with 4, 8 and even 16. Then we can move to 24. Like whenever we are increasing the number of steps, it would take a long amount of time like to generate the image. And next, the CFG scale. And personally, I found the values around like 4 to 6 work very well. But always we can start with around like 1 to 2, and then we can increase it. So whenever we are increasing the CFG scale, it would take a long amount of time. So that was a challenge with this. And along with that, like the resolution also matters. Like Krea was trained with a very high resolution. So what I can say was that, so whenever our hardware allows generate that at a larger resolution instead of relying entirely on the upscaling. And finally, the seeds don't settle for the first generation. So sometimes changing the seed completely changes the composition. So this was the final workflow. And I could also show some of my generation. So this was the same prompt, but I'm not running it right now because it would take a lot of memory and I'm recording the video as well. So here you can see this was the first generation which I did, and you can see the number of steps I used was very basic, it was 4, and the CFG scale I used was 1, like just to generate this. And you can see the output that we had was like a very cool output. And along with the next prompt, like while going to the next, this was the next prompt, so futuristic fashion model wearing. So here I generated a couple of images. So this was the first one, and then I just changed the futuristic Indian fashion model. So this was the second image, and even this looks good. And finally, this ancient dragon flying above the snowy mountains. So this I was generated by using just the 4 steps. So with just the 4 steps, you can see the quality in the image, and like the output it was generated was very cool, right? Along with that, we also have the multiple LoRa's for this Krea model. So we can download all the LoRa's from here. And you can see like we have the retro anime. If you can able to open that, we can see we can able to generate these kind of images. So just what we need to do was add the LoRa model in the workflow and just connect that model to the K sampler. So it would easily generate the such kind of images, and even I generated a few of them. And here we have the kids drawing, so we have the different kind of outputs here as well. So by this way, we can able to use the LoRa's, which was already pre-exist in the Krea model. After spending time reading the report and generating number of images, I think the biggest takeaway isn't a specific architecture change. It is not a new attention mechanism. It is not a revolutionary sampler. It's the overall philosophy. Most image models are trying to generate the single best image. Krea seems focused on helping creators explore possibilities instead. The mindset shows up everywhere. Better datasets, better captions, prompt expansion, style understanding. Everything supports creative exploration. And I think that's why the model already feels different to use. Overall, I'm genuinely impressed with what the Krea team has built. The model is easy to run inside ComfyUI. The technical report is packed with thoughtful engineering decisions. And perhaps most importantly, it shows that improving AI image generation isn't just about making larger models. Sometimes it's about asking better questions. If you have already tried Krea, I had loved to know what your experience has been. And if you are interested, in the next video, we can build a much more advanced ComfyUI workflow with style differences, image to image, LoRa's, and optimization techniques.